In the age of the internet, leaving your child home alone can have sober consequences, like it happened to a 9-year-old Russian girl, Felicia Kononchuk, who was shot and killed by her drunk neighbor when she opened the door thinking it was her friend. It happens so that innocent people fall victim to the irresponsible behaviors of others, and this is one such story.
У нас там сосед, он пьяный, он, стучится на дверь, всю ломает нафиг. Он уже несколько минут здесь стоит, стучится, орёт, матерится. Я просто, мне страшно.
These were Felicia's last words on TikTok. It's simply horrifying, and it reminds you how vulnerable one can be among so much violence nowadays. Felicia was at home alone while her father went out shopping. She recorded some videos on TikTok right before, where you could hear the neighbor banging on the door. Felicia's TikTok friends watched helplessly as she was killed by 33-year-old Vasily Dunets. Her dad was out shopping and found her. She died in his arms. Felicia was a sweet little girl born in Russia's Chita city. She had 2 brothers and no sister. She was born in 2011 to parents Alyona and Fyodor. She was so cheerful and bright and never held a grudge, her mother said. She did well at school and was just adorable. She loved pink flowers and unicorns. Chita is a Russian city bordering Mongolia. It is a pretty big city with around 350,000 people. This city is far away from the other towns of Russia, but Felicia felt close to the whole world through her TikTok account. She was connected with many other teenagers like her and felt part of a big teen community. She liked TikTok and spent time with her friends all around the world. She painted a little heart on her face, and she liked her friends and family. Her family was supporting the girl in her passions. She grew up in a loving environment. Her father was never against Felicia being on TikTok, and in fact, the danger came not from the internet but from their neighbor. The danger was just next door. On the day of the event, February the 17th, 2021, Felicia was at home with her 2 brothers and some maintenance guys who came to do repairs at home. Felicia was on TikTok when she heard someone banging on the door. She heard some terrifying noises coming from the hall of the apartment. She decided to record herself on TikTok live. The girl was utmost scared. She tried to find support among her friends, and one of the friends offered to come to her place and take her for a walk. However, before she could do so, the neighbor had already killed the sweet little girl. In the video, she said that she and her brothers, aged 4 and 15, were home alone while her dad went to the store. According to Yahoo News, the father briefly left the children alone and had been doing some repairs. Felicia reported in her video that her youngest brother just hid. She tried to find some help, or at least some comfort, on TikTok.
Ребята, всем привет, у меня сейчас жесть история. У нас там сосед, он пьяный, он, стучится на дверь, всю ломает нафиг. Он уже несколько минут здесь стоит, стучится, орёт, матерится. Я просто, мне страшно. Блин. Вообще. Мне страшно. Я с братом младшим, старшим, и там еще ремонт делают. Папа ушел в магазин. Я не знаю, что делать, он просто нам сейчас дверь сломает. Жесть просто капец. Мне очень страшно, у меня сердце бьется. Жесть. Я боюсь, у меня просто... Теперь он сначала прям долбился, будто ногой, а теперь вот долбиться. Долбиться, это прям слышно. Это очень жестко слышно. Чё его... У меня просто башка раскалывается. Ну, он уже минут час где-то стоит, стукается. Сердце страшно. Жестко. Это жестко. Мой брат, спрятался и все.
Not long after, Felicia heard a pause and a softer knock at her door and assumed her friend had arrived to take her out for a walk. She eagerly went to open the door, but when she did, she was scared to death. It was Vasily standing at the door. Frantic Felicia closed the door, but Vasily fired through the door, making holes in it. Felicia was riddled with bullets shot through the metal front door by Dunets with a 12 caliber hunting rifle that left fatal wounds in her head and chest. The neighbor, Vasily Dunets, 33, at this moment unleashed a volley of shots with his 12 caliber IZH-43EM hunting rifle. The bullets penetrated the metal door and she was hit in the head. My daughter died in my arms. Fyodor's elder son called the emergency services, but when they arrived, there was no chance to save the child. When the ambulance arrived, I carried her to them, but the doctors said that she had no chance to survive, Fyodor said. Vasily Dunets, who worked in a household supply store, confessed to the killing and was detained, said police. Dunets had a long history of violence and irrational behavior. He used alcohol and his job was not regular, so he was at home most of the time with his mother. The thing was that in the past, he had some arguments with Felicia's dad. This time, he was irritated by the noise that the renovation team made in Felicia's house. He had already harassed Felicia and her brothers about the noise that morning. His father argued with Vasily before he went grocery shopping. Vasily waited for Fyodor to leave the house to terrorize his children. The fact is that if Fyodor stayed at home, Vasily Dunets wouldn't have broken into his house. Why did Felicia open the door in the end? The fact is that she thought that Vasily was bored of knocking on the door, and she was waiting for her dad to come home. Besides, her friend on TikTok promised to come and take her for a walk. So Felicia thought that it was her friend. Thinking that it was her friend, she went to open the door, but when she did, her blood froze. It was Vasily Dunets standing at the doors. It was Vasily Dunets standing at the door. He was armed with a hunting rifle. Vasily fired through the door, making holes in it. He shot Felicia in the head. She lived just enough to see her father one last time. I ran into the corridor and saw my daughter covered in blood. She said, "Dad, I've been killed." I took her in my arms and shouted to my sons and the repairman to call an ambulance. When the ambulance arrived, I carried her to them, but the doctors said she had no chance to survive. Vasily Dunets was immediately arrested. He didn't even try to escape after he killed Felicia. While there are many questions open, like what were the brothers or the repair guys doing while the girl was at the door? Why didn't the maintenance guy convince Vasily to back off? Maybe they were afraid to confront him themselves, or they did not take the threats too seriously. Following Felicia's death, her father posted her last video on TikTok and also posted the crime scene. There is no excuse for Vasily harassing and killing a child for a noise complaint. Vasily was a real-life monster, and the fact that he was drunk was no excuse. He took away the life of an innocent child who had dreams in this life. He took away the life of somebody who did not manage to see adulthood, and he gave grief to Felicia's parents that would never be recovered. Fyodor's last videos were showing Vasily behind bars. The whole world expressed sympathy with the little girl, but unfortunately that did not take grief away from Fyodor and Alina. In a video following the funeral, Fyodor said, "My daughter's body is in the soil and her soul is in heaven." Russia's top criminal investigator Alexander Bastrykin took charge of the horrific case. The investigation committee discovered that Vasily had a criminal record behind his back, and he did not have a regular source of income. According to some sources, he had permission to own guns. But the mother of Felicia insisted that the gun belonged to the uncle of Vasily. At the same time, the mother of Felicia told her that they had normal relations with the neighbor. She recalled that once Vasily gave his bicycle to his younger son as a gift, she believed that Vasily's mother talked against their family. "I always felt that she disliked us," she said. Felicia had song classes at 6 o'clock in the evening in the Palace of Pioneers. At 5, the daughter called and said that she was getting ready. I had to drive her to her class. Several minutes later, my elder son called and told me that Felicia was dying, the mother said. The investigator asserted that Vasily was fully conscious of what he was doing and what could the consequences be. But Vasily himself said that he had no intention to kill. He just wanted to frighten the family. He said that he was irritated by the noise of the repair. However, the mother of the dead girl insisted that the repair was done only during day hours. During the weekend, no noise could be heard. But because Vasily was at home almost all the time, he could hear everything. The mother of Felicia said they regretted that they did not call the police in the morning. Most probably, Vasily would be taken away and the tragedy would not happen, she said. The usual sentence for murder in Russia is just 10 years. The community demanded that he should get a life sentence. Eventually, the court sentenced Vasily to 17 years of imprisonment. The Russian Investigative Committee said it was an impudent and cynical killing. If you consider that he was in his 30s, it means he will get out of prison when he is 50. How many more lives will Vasily take when he comes out of prison? These questions remain open. At the moment, Fyodor is trying to appeal Vasily's sentence and demand a longer imprisonment. "I just want that man to realize what he did," Fyodor said. This is just a single case, but it tells a lot about crime in general. The homicide rate in Russia reached 3.7 homicides per 100,000 people in 2022. Just to compare, the homicide rate for 2021 in Switzerland was 0.48. Until the late 1980s, homicide rates in Russia were nearly similar to that in the United States. The increase in homicide rate in Russia began slightly earlier than 1990 and rose throughout the 1990s. At the beginning of the 20th century, Russia had a higher rate, nearly 10 per 100,000 people per year. The number of murders in Russia last year increased for the first time in 20 years in what some analysts suggest is a knock-on event of the country's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Russian business daily Kommersant reported, citing a Bar Association report. But 2022 saw a 4% rise of murder and attempted murder registered by the Russian Prosecutor General's office, according to the report. The data contrasts with a Russian Interior Ministry report last week saying that the number of overall crimes reported in Russia decreased by almost 2% in 2022, while violent crime was down by 4%. The age pattern of homicide victimization rates in Russia is different compared to that of the United States. In 2001, 32% of the homicide victims in Russia were under the age of 35, and 30% of the victims were 50 years or older. There is a wide range of variation in homicide rates throughout Russia. The homicide rate is relatively high in Siberia and the Russian Far East compared to European Russia. However, when we look at these figures, there is one question that comes to mind. Can we trust the official data or not? In this unstable environment when war in Ukraine is going on, I don't think the Russian government is very eager to showcase the real situation. So we can speculate that the crime rate in Russia is far higher than the actual data shows. The global crime rate varies significantly from country to country. According to the World Population Review, Venezuela has the highest crime rate of 83.76 per 100,000 citizens, while Iceland ranks as the world's safest country with a low crime rate. Some of the countries with the highest crime rates include Papua New Guinea, South Africa, Afghanistan, and Honduras. On the other hand, countries with low crime rates include Switzerland, Denmark, Norway, Japan, and New Zealand. It's important to know that crime rates are influenced by various factors such as poverty levels, unemployment, law enforcement, effectiveness, and gun laws. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on crime rates worldwide. Research has shown that the pandemic has led to changes in various types of crime, including organized crime, terrorism, street crime, online crime, illegal markets, smuggling, human and wildlife trafficking, slavery, robberies, and burglaries. Several studies have indicated that certain types of crime such as robbery, burglary, assault, and battery decreased significantly during the pandemic, particularly during the periods of lockdown and quarantine. However, there have been inconsistencies in the literature, with some studies showing an overall decrease in crime rates followed by a bounce back, while others have reported an increase in specific types of crime such as auto theft and homicide. The impact of the pandemic on crime rates is a complex and evolving area of study, and further research is needed to fully understand the long-term effects of the pandemic on global crime rates. Going back to the unfortunate story about Felicia Kononchuk, we have to say that the world is full of crazy stories. Whether it's education, government, or politics, it happens so that innocent people pay the price. We are witnesses of little children falling victim to crazy acts, and this is common almost all over the world. We are not even sure that prisons are the cure for crime, since most often those who have crime records repeat their acts after they came out of prison. Something is wrong with the system, but before we decide on this, let's think about what you and I can do. Since the issue of crime is so important and it takes away many innocent lives, in my video series I am going to cover more stories like this. If you know such stories, let me know in the comments. Also hit the bell button and subscribe. Maybe together we can help fight crime by raising awareness. Let's hope for a better world where small children do not pay the price for the irresponsible behavior of others. And let's hope for a better world for all of us.